The dawn does not shout, it whispers, long before the noise of the waking world begins its march. There is a silence that calls only to those who can hear beyond sound, the empaths, the inward listeners, the ones whose hearts have been shaped by the unspoken suffering of others. If you are among them, then you know the strange burden of waking each day, not to your own emotion, but to the residue of the collective dream, the psychic dust of humanity's restless night. In the early hours, before the first light stretches across the horizon, you stand at the threshold between two worlds. One is the world of dreams, fluid, archetypal, timeless, where the language of the soul speaks through symbol. The other is the world of daylight, structured, demanding, hungry for attention. Between these two lies your sacred moment of reclamation. It is here, before the world awakens, that the empath must choose whether to be consumed by the collective unconscious or to rise above it as its conscious interpreter. I have said that the unconscious is not merely personal, it is a vast sea, shared by all, carrying within it the primal images and forces that shape civilizations. The empath lives close to its shores. They are the first to feel the tide before it is seen, the first to sense the coming storm of emotion that will later sweep through the masses. But this sensitivity, if not anchored, becomes a curse. You awaken already full, not with your own being, but with the echo of everyone else's unresolved pain. That is why the morning must become your sanctuary. It is not simply a time on the clock, but a ritual space between darkness and day, a psychic baptism that renews your boundaries when you awaken before reaching for the world. Before inviting its chaos into your fragile temple of awareness, you must reclaim what belongs to you. For peace does not come from absence of noise, but from presence of self in this quiet interval. The first revelation of the soul arises that peace is not granted to you by the world, it is remembered within you. The empath's journey is not about protecting oneself from energy, but about remembering which energy was yours to begin with. The morning is your mirror. When you sit before it in stillness, you see not your reflection, but your essence, stripped of all projections. The world has not yet painted its expectations upon you. In that raw stillness, the self, that eternal center Jung called the God image within, breathes again. You may feel the residue of dreams still clinging to your mind. There are images, strange yet familiar. Do not dismiss them. They are messages from the unconscious, whispering of what the soul has been processing in the night. Perhaps you saw a flood, a forest, a child, or a mirror. Shatterings, these are not random. They are archetypal communications seeking to guide you toward integration. Write them down, not as predictions, but as conversations. The dream speaks in symbols because the soul does not argue, it reveals. Then comes the second movement of the morning, the awakening of awareness. Most people open their eyes and immediately scatter themselves to messages, to memories, to tasks. But the empath must do the opposite. You must gather yourself, breathe deeply, and let the inhale remind you that life is entering you not through another, not borrowed from a vibration, but drawn from the eternal source that dwells at your core. The breath is the bridge between conscious and unconscious, between spirit and matter. To breathe with awareness is to re-establish sovereignty over your inner realm. As you sit in that breath, notice how the mind begins to surface its anxieties, its stories, its rehearsals of the day ahead. They arrive like clouds, drifting across the early light. Do not chase them. The empath's mind is a hall of mirrors. It reflects the moods of others so easily that one forgets which reflection belongs to whom. Let the thoughts drift past without judgment. They are not you. They are the collective whispering through you, testing whether you will once again carry their burden. Here lies the third revelation, the recognition of psychic boundaries to reclaim peace. You must not wall yourself off, but rather become transparent. The wall resists, and resistance feeds energy, but transparency allows energy to pass through without attachment. Imagine yourself as a lake. When a stone of emotion is thrown into you, you do not hold it. You let it sink and dissolve. The surface may ripple for a moment, but soon the stillness returns. The empath's gift matures when feeling transforms into understanding, not possession. Many empaths confuse compassion with absorption. They believe that to help others, they must suffer with them. But this is a distortion of love. True empathy sees without drowning. It recognizes pain as sacred data from the soul, but refuses to mistake it for identity. The morning light teaches this truth, that clarity, not chaos, is the foundation of compassion. When you awaken and sit in the still light, you are learning to love without losing yourself, to witness the world's suffering without collapsing into it. There is a deeper mystery here. The world that awakens each morning is itself a projection, a shared dream constructed by billions of minds. The empath, by virtue of their sensitivity, feels the tremors of that dream more acutely. But you are not condemned to be its victim. In fact, you are invited to become its conscious participant. When you rise with awareness, you enter the collective field not as a sponge, but as a tuning fork, resonating with harmony rather than dissonance. You become the morning light itself, illuminating rather than absorbing. And yet, this transformation demands courage, for to live as an awake empath is to live without the false comfort of numbness. It means you will feel deeply, but now with direction. The morning ritual is your initiation into conscious feeling. It is your reminder that you are both the observer and the observed, the vessel and the light. Every sunrise is an invitation to begin again, to cleanse the psychic field and to recommit to your individuation, the sacred process by which the self becomes real in the world. You may find that during this quiet practice, shadows begin to emerge, old wounds, buried griefs, memories of rejection or betrayal. They come not to torment you, but to be integrated. For the empath often carries the shadow of humanity, the pain that others deny. When it surfaces within you, breathe it into the light of awareness. Do not exorcise it. Embrace it. Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The morning light does not banish the night, it reveals what the night was hiding. This is the fourth revelation, that peace is not the absence of shadow, but its illumination. The empath who learns to sit with darkness, without fear, becomes a channel of transformation. You cease to be merely sensitive. You become alchemical. The emotions that once overwhelmed you now become material for growth, for art, for wisdom. The world awakens, chaotic and loud, but you remain rooted in that inner dawn, a silent flame that neither wind nor noise can extinguish. In this stillness, you begin to sense the presence of something larger moving through you. It is not your emotion, nor another's, it is the living pulse of the collective soul. You recognize that your sensitivity was never a flaw. It was the organ through which the world itself feels. And when you allow this energy to pass through without resistance, you become a healer by mere existence. Your peace becomes medicine for others. The light you reclaim in the morning becomes the light they will unconsciously seek throughout their day. But beware the subtle temptation of ego, the belief that being empathic makes you special or chosen. Sensitivity is not superiority. It is responsibility. The more deeply you feel, the more vital it becomes to ground yourself in the ordinary. In the act of making tea, in the warmth of the sun on your skin, in the rhythm of your steps as you walk, spiritual awareness without embodiment becomes dissociation. The empath must learn to anchor heaven in earth. Each morning, as the light returns, let it enter not only your mind, but your body. Let it remind you that peace is not somewhere above you, it is within your heartbeat, in the texture of breath, in the sacred ordinariness of being alive. The fifth revelation emerges here, that to reclaim peace, you must unite the spiritual and the physical. The empath often drifts into transcendence, seeking refuge from intensity in higher realms of imagination or idealism, but the soul seeks integration, not escape. The morning ritual calls you back to incarnation, to touch the ground, to feel your weight upon the earth, is to honor the divine in matter. The unconscious does not separate spirit from flesh. It unites them in symbol. When you awaken and stretch your body, you are not performing a mechanical act, you are enacting the eternal myth of resurrection. The light enters and you rise, and so as the first noise of the world begins to stir distant engines, voice, movement, you sense how fragile your peace can be if it is not anchored. Yet you also sense that this peace, once claimed, cannot be taken. It is no longer dependent on silence or solitude. It has become an inner state, a vibration of coherence between your conscious and unconscious self. The world will demand your attention, your energy, your empathy, but you will no longer give them unconsciously. You will give from overflow, not depletion. The empath's morning light is thus not merely the sun on the horizon, it is the illumination of awareness after the night of confusion. It is the moment when you remember that your gift is not to feel everything, but to understand what feeling truly is the language of the soul, translating the mystery of being into experience. Each morning, when you open your eyes, the universe opens its eyes through you. You are not waking up to the world is awakening through you. And so the day begins, as it always does. The light expands, and with it, the noise. But something within you has shifted. You have seen the dawn not as an external event, but as a psychological one, the birth of consciousness from the womb of the unconscious. The ancient alchemists called it the albedo, the whitening phase, the cleansing by light after the dark night of dissolution. For the empath, this whitening is not sterile purity, but a state of clarity where the self is no longer diffused into the world's chaos. There is a strange paradox here. To reclaim peace, you must first accept your war. Inside every empath lives a battlefield between two archetypal forces, the healer and the martyr. The healer moves with compassion and discernment, tending to wounds without losing themselves in them. The martyr, on the other hand, confuses suffering with service. They carry crosses not assigned to them, believing that redemption comes through exhaustion. When the morning light enters, it exposes this tension. It whispers, you are not here to bleed for the world, you are here to illuminate it. The unconscious often disguises our deepest truths as suffering. The empath, in their innocence, often accepts this suffering as evidence of their purpose. But look closer. The suffering is not your essence, it is your initiation. Each wave of pain you have ever felt was not meant to drown you, but to teach you the language of the soul. Pain is how consciousness learns empathy without attachment. The moment you realize this, something profound happens. The very energy that once drained you becomes the energy that strengthens you. You are no longer absorbing, you are transmuting. This alchemy begins in awareness. Imagine your inner world as a sacred vessel. Every morning, before the world pours into it, you must decide what it shall contain. The empath who begins their day without awareness is like an open vessel placed beneath a storm filled, not by intention, but by accident. The one who rises in conscious stillness, however, shapes the day with purpose. Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The empath's morning ritual is precisely this act of making conscious what would otherwise control them in secret. As you step into the light, notice how the world begins to ask for you. A message here, a voice there, an unspoken pull from someone's unseen pain. You sense it not through words, but through the subtle vibrations of atmosphere. The empath reads reality the way others read text. But now you must remember, perception does not equal responsibility. To sense something does not mean you are meant to fix it. The morning peace you cultivated was not selfishness, it was preparation. For without inner alignment, your sensitivity turns into servitude. This is the next revelation you must learn to witness without absorbing. Imagine yourself standing before a vast ocean. Each wave represents the emotion of another fear, anger, loneliness, desire. You may feel their force, but you are not obligated to dive in. You may honor the ocean's power without surrendering your breath to it. This is the mature empathy. The empathy of consciousness, not compulsion. The archetype of the empath evolves through 4 subtle transformations, though they may appear as one unfolding movement. At first, the empath is the mirror reflecting everything they encounter, unaware of their own reflection. Then they become the sponge, absorbing all energies confusing feeling with identity. With awakening, they become the vessel allowing energy to flow through without resistance. And finally, so they become the light, the one through whom all things are seen clearly, but who remains untouched by them. To reach this final stage, the empath must reclaim one forgotten truth. Solitude is not loneliness. It is communion with the self. In solitude, you encounter not emptiness, but essence. The world has conditioned you to believe that connection requires constant availability. But true connection arises from authenticity. And authenticity requires solitude. The morning is sacred because it is solitude made visible. Sit for a moment in this truth. Feel how your body, when given silence, begins to hum in its own frequency. That hum is not a sound, it is a knowing. It is your soul remembering its shape. Each morning that you honor this space, the unconscious rewards you with symbols, small visions, subtle intuitions, fleeting images that guide your day. You may see the image of a bird taking flight, a door opening, or a river flowing backward. These are not random. They are the psyche's poetry metaphors for your inner process. One morning, you may dream of standing before a mountain and feeling too weak to climb. The unawakened mind might interpret this as limitation. But the empath who listens symbolically will understand the mountain is your individuation, the sacred task of becoming whole. The weakness you feel is not failure, it is humility. It reminds you that the ascent is not done by force, but by surrender. The morning light reveals not the summit, but the first step. When you move through your day, carry this inner light with you as a silent lamp. The empath's peace is portable. You need not isolate yourself to preserve it. But to carry peace into the noise, you must remain anchored in the self. The self, in Jung's vision, is the totality of being conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, light and shadow. It is the divine center that holds opposites without conflict. To rest in the self is to stand at the still point while the world spins around you. The empath who forgets this center becomes fragmented. They begin to live in other stories, wearing masks that match the moods around them. This fragmentation is the root of exhaustion, not the feeling itself, but the loss of coherence. The morning ritual exists to remind you that your identity is not relational, but archetypal. You are not merely someone's comfort healer or listener. You are the bridge between the personal and the cosmic, the channel through which the collective unconscious remembers its heart. And so, when the day challenges you, when you encounter anger, despair, confusion, you must return inward, not outward. The empath's instinct is to fix, but the soul's command is to feel consciously. Do not rush to soothe. Let the emotion reveal its image. If you feel the weight of another's sorrow, close your eyes and ask, what is this sorrow trying to teach the human spirit? When you do this, the energy transforms from heaviness into meaning. The unconscious does not ask you to carry emotion, it asks you to translate it. This translation is the empath's true art. It is why the world needs you not as a reservoir of pain, but as a language maker of the invisible. Every time you feel something deeply and bring awareness to it, you redeem a piece of humanity from unconsciousness. You are the priest of emotion, turning raw feeling into revelation. But to do this sacred work, you must first become fluent in your own silence. There will be mornings when this silence feels unbearable, when loneliness presses against your ribs like an uninvited ghost. Do not flee. The loneliness is not a punishment. It is a doorway when the world sleeps and you awaken alone with your thoughts. You are standing in the holy void where creation begins. Out of that void, the first light always emerges. The mystics knew this, that God's first act was not to speak, but to separate light from darkness. The empath's first act each morning is the same to separate their soul's light from the world's shadow. Sometimes you will fail. You will wake already heavy, already saturated with others' pain, unable to find peace. No matter how still you sit, that too is sacred. For even in failure, you are witnessing the tension of opposites that fuels transformation. Jung called this enantiodromia, the principle that every extreme gives birth to its opposite. When your peace collapses, it is only so that a deeper, truer peace can rise. Do not judge the fall. Let it teach you humility before the mystery of psyche. In the grand rhythm of the soul, no morning is wasted. Even those drenched in darkness are part of your illumination. For light that has never met darkness does not know itself. The empath's gift is not endless light, but balanced awareness to hold shadow and radiance in the same breath. When you can sit with both without preference, you have transcended sentiment and entered wisdom. As the sun rises higher, the morning ritual dissolves into the ordinary. You make breakfast, answer messages, interact with the world. Yet, if you listen closely, the echo of that sacred stillness remains. It moves beneath your actions like a quiet melody. This is how transformation endures, not in dramatic visions, but in subtle constancy. You are not the same empath who awoke in the darkness. You are now the morning itself, the embodiment of light meeting matter. By midday, the external world has fully awakened, and so has its storm of vibration. The empath begins to feel the subtle pressure of invisible tides, the exhaustion that comes not from effort, but from immersion. It is here, in the brightness of day, that the real test of your morning light begins. For dawn gives you revelation, but daylight demands intégration. Many spiritual souls know the sacred in stillness, but few can carry that same silence into noise. This is the alchemical task of the awakened empath, to hold the center. When the circumference trembles, you will notice that throughout the day, the world invites you into emotional contracts. Every interaction is an unconscious negotiation of energy. Someone speaks with anxiety, another masks their despair with laughter. You feel it all, not as sound, but as vibration beneath sound, and yet this time something is different. Because of your morning communion, you can perceive without collapsing. The light within you stands like a lamp in the wind, flickering, perhaps, but unextinguished. It is in these moments that you must remember what Jung called the tension of opposites. Consciousness grows when opposites are held, not resolved. The empath who seeks only peace will find themselves avoiding truth, for truth often disturbs before it liberates. Do not chase serenity at the cost of awareness. The peace you reclaimed at dawn is not meant to shield you from life. It is meant to allow you to walk through its contradictions without disintegrating. Notice how the collective unconscious speaks to you through the day. It may be through synchronicities, small coincidences that seem too precise to be random. A song lyric repeating your dream, a stranger's phrase answering your unspoken thought. These are not trivial. They are signs that your inner and outer worlds are aligning the psyche, conversing with reality. When you live consciously, the world ceases to be external. It becomes symbolic. You are no longer living in the world. You are living with it, in dialogue. This is what I call the empath's conversation with the divine. For the empath does not need a temple to encounter the sacred. Every moment is temple when consciousness is present. The rustle of leaves, the gaze of another, the movement of clouds all speak the language of psyche. The outer world mirrors the inner world, and the empath, being porous, perceives this, mirroring before others do. It is both burden and blessing. The burden is that you cannot ignore what others can. The blessing is that you can heal what others cannot face. But healing does not come through doing, it comes through being. This is the paradox that few understand. The empath often believes they must act, give advice, comfort. Je perds. Yet true transformation arises not when you intervene, but when you remain present with awareness. Presence itself is catalytic. It invites the unconscious of another to awaken. When you hold space without judgment, you create a psychological mirror in which their soul can finally see itself. In that reflection, healing begins. You might ask, but what if their pain overwhelms me? And I would tell you only the unanchored empath is overwhelmed. When your consciousness rests in the self, the eternal center of the psyche, nothing external can truly invade you. You may feel emotion, yes, but feeling is not possession. It is resonance. The difference between drowning and floating lies in awareness. The water is the same. The position of consciousness changes everything. Let us look deeper into this mystery. Every soul carries both personal and collective content. When you feel another's emotion, you are not merely absorbing their energy, you are encountering the universal archetype behind it. The grief of one person is connected to the archetype of loss, their anger to the archetype of power, their fear to the archetype of survival. To see emotion archetypally is to lift it from the personal to the cosmic. The empath who can make this shift ceases to suffer and begins to understand. When you encounter anger, ask, what power in me or in the collective is seeking recognition? When you encounter sadness, ask, what loss in the human story is asking to be witnessed through these questions? You transform empathy into wisdom. You no longer identify with emotion, you translate it. The alchemist turns lead into gold. The awakened empath turns emotion into insight. This process cannot occur without shadow work. The shadow, as I have often said, is that part of the psyche which the ego refuses to see. For the empath, the shadow often hides behind goodness. You may pride yourself on compassion, on understanding, on light. Yet, sometimes, beneath that light, there lies resentment, pride, or the need to be needed. Do not condemn these shadows. They are not enemies, but unacknowledged energies seeking integration. When you catch yourself wanting to save someone, pause, feel the subtle thrill behind the urge, the desire to be indispensable, to justify your existence through usefulness. This is not evil, it is human, but it is also shadow. The moment you see it clearly, it loses its control. Awareness transforms compulsion into choice. You no longer help to earn worth, you help because your being naturally radiates care. In this revelation, the empath's love becomes clean. It no longer entangles, it liberates. Others feel safer around you, not because you absorb their pain, but because you no longer demand that they fill your emptiness. Peace has replaced performance. You have learned that love does not mean merging, but meeting. As the day unfolds, your sensitivity remains, but its quality has changed. It no longer burns you, it guides you. You sense where to go, when to speak, when to treat. This intuitive rhythm is not logical, but it is deeply intelligent. It is the intelligence of the unconscious, the wisdom that moves trees toward light and rivers toward the sea. When you live attuned to it, life begins to cooperate with you. The right people appear, the right words surface, the right moments unfold. Do not mistake this for magic or fate. It is alignment. When the conscious and unconscious move together, synchronicity becomes the language of existence. You are not manifesting, you are participating. The self, which is both within you and beyond you, orchestrates the dance. Your task is simply to listen. But listening is not easy in a world that shouts. The empath must cultivate inner stillness throughout the day, not only in the morning, even in conversation, even in activity. Carry a fragment of silence within you. It need not be literal quiet. It is a spaciousness of awareness. It is the ability to hear what is said beneath words, to sense the soul's meaning beneath the surface noise. When you live this way, you begin to see that everyone you meet is dreaming while awake. Most people live inside projections, fantasies, fears, inherited scripts. The empath's task is not to awaken them by force, but to remain awake among them. Your awareness becomes a light that gently disturbs their slumber. Sometimes they will love you for it, sometimes they will resent you. Do not take either personally. Their reaction belongs to their stage of awakening, not to your worth. The afternoon sunlight begins to wane. You feel fatigue, not of body, but of soul. The empath's nervous system, no matter how awakened, still bears the strain of contact with a collective. You return to solitude, not as escape, but as nourishment. You sit once more in stillness, and the morning light within you glows again. Gentler now, matured by the day's experience. Here comes the evening wisdom, the understanding that peace is cyclical. It must be renewed daily. For consciousness moves in waves. You are not meant to remain in eternal light. The psyche requires darkness to digest the light. Just as the earth needs night to rest, the empath soul needs withdrawal to integrate. So as the sun sets, give thanks not for perfection, but for participation. You have felt, seen, listened, translated. You have not withdrawn from life, you have danced with it. The peace you reclaim each morning is not static serenity, but dynamic equilibrium. It bends, shifts, responds like breath, like tide, like love itself. And as you prepare to sleep, you realize the circle is closed. The same silence that greeted you at dawn returns, but now it carries the memory of experience. You lie down not as one overwhelmed, but as one emptied. The empath who ends the day conscious ends it clean. Sleep becomes not escape, but reunion. The conscious ego dissolving back into the collective unconscious from which it was born. In dreams, the symbols return, perhaps gentler now, perhaps radiant. They come to complete what the waking mind began. You are reminded that even in rest, the psyche is at work, weaving meaning through image and metaphor. The dream world, which you will revisit tonight, is the same sacred space that gave you peace in the morning. The circle of awareness continues, the eternal rhythm of awakening, engaging and returning. You are not separate from the light you reclaim. You are its vessel, and every dawn that you rise in awareness, the world itself brightens for your consciousness, participates in the collective evolution of humanity. Each empath who awakens becomes a node of illumination in the vast field of the unconscious. Through your peace, the world remembers its own soul. And now, as the cycle closes, we return to where we began, to the morning. That is both a moment and a metaphor. Every dawn is a mirror of the psyche's eternal rhythm descent into darkness, awakening through light, and the reconciliation of both within consciousness. The empath's life, more than any other, reflects this rhythm. You live perpetually at the threshold between the visible and the invisible, between human sorrow and divine understanding. You see, for the gift of sensitivity was never meant to make you fragile. It was meant to make you aware. Awareness is not weakness, it is the highest strength the soul can bear. The problem is not that you feel too much, but that you have not yet learned to let feeling flow through you without resistance. Like water in a river, emotion purifies as it moves, but stagnates when hoarded. The empath suffers when they confuse containment with compassion. True compassion is movement. It receives, transforms, releases. In this final reflection, let us contemplate what the morning light truly symbolizes. It is not merely illumination, but revelation. It reveals what was hidden in shadow, not to judge it, but to integrate it. Integration, that sacred word Jung cherished, means to make whole. The empath's journey is a journey of wholeness through awareness. Each emotion you feel, each wound you touch, Each shadow you meet is an opportunity for union between conscious and unconscious, heaven and earth, human and divine. And so, as you awaken each morning, you are not merely beginning a day. You are participating in the cosmic act of creation. You are reenacting the birth of consciousness itself. When you sit in stillness before the world stirs, you echo the moment when God said, "Let there be light." And light answered, "That light is not outside you. It is the light of awareness dawning upon your soul." The archetype that governs your nature, the empath, is not new. It is as ancient as the Oracle of Delphi, as gentle as the Virgin Mary, as fierce as the wounded healer Chiron. Each of these represents a dimension of your psyche. The oracle listens to the collective unconscious and speaks its truth. The Virgin receives divine life without contamination of ego. The healer transforms pain into wisdom. When these archetypes unite within you, you become what I call the light bearer of the psyche. The light bearer does not flee darkness. They carry light into it. They no longer seek to avoid the pain of the world, because they have realized that light without shadow is sterile. Peace to the mature empath is not a fragile calm, but a radiant stillness born from union with all that is. When you reclaim this peace each morning, you are not escaping life, you are preparing to engage it from the center of being. The world needs such souls now more than ever. We live in an age of psychic noise, where attention has become currency and silence, a rebellion. The empath stands as a counterforce to fragmentation, a living symbol of wholeness. But to sustain this role, you must live consciously, deliberately, ritually. Each dawn must be a covenant, renewed, a silent vow between your soul and the source that breathes through you. When you wake, before you look outward, turn inward. Feel the pulse that has never ceased. Even through the night, the heartbeat of the universe echoing within your chest. This is the self reminding you that you are never separate. You belong not to the chaos, but to the harmony beneath it. Before the world speaks, let the silence of God speak in you. That silence is not empty. It is pregnant with presence. And when you step into the world, carry this silence like a hidden jewel. You need not announce it. The light of the awakened empath shines quietly. It is felt, not seen. People may not know why they feel calmer in your presence, why their own hearts slow. When they speak to you, it is because you have remembered what they have forgotten, that peace is contagious when born from authenticity. But do not expect gratitude from the world. Light often irritates those who still love their sleep. Some will project their shadows onto you, mistaking your clarity for judgment. Others will drain your compassion, confusing your openness for obligation. It will hurt, yes, but that pain too is part of your training. Every wound you endure consciously becomes a door through which light enters the collective. The empath suffering is sacred when it is witnessed without self-pity. It becomes initiation. You will find over time that your mourning practice extends beyond mourning. The separation between sacred and ordinary dissolves. Washing dishes, walking through crowds, listening to a friend, all become forms of meditation. For the empath who has united with the self, every act is ritual, every sound is symbol, every breath is prayer. And then something miraculous happens. You stop fearing the collective. You begin to see that what once overwhelmed you was never the world, it was yourself. Reflected through countless mirrors, every emotion that enters your field belongs, in some deep sense, to you. The angry man on the street, the grieving mother, the fearful child, they are fragments of the same soul expressing itself through different masks. To love them is to reclaim them. This is the ultimate revelation, that empathy is not about others at all. It is about wholeness. You do not feel their pain. You feel the pain, the archetypal wound of existence yearning to be made conscious. To heal it in yourself is to heal it everywhere. The empath's morning light, therefore, is not just personal serenity. It is a contribution to the healing of the collective soul. When enough empaths awaken in this way, the balance of the world shifts. Wars grow quieter, because the human heart has learned to listen. Fear loses its grip, because the unseen is no longer foreign. Compassion ceases to be charity and becomes nature. The light that you reclaim in solitude becomes civilization's dawn. So each morning, when you rise and open your eyes, remember this. You are not waking into a world that is separate from your consciousness. You are co-creating it. The peace you generate before the first noise arises becomes the psychic foundation upon which countless unseen lives rest. That is why the morning matters. That is why your silence is sacred. And when you fail, as all will fail, do not despair. The psyche does not demand perfection. It seeks participation. Even the struggle is holy. The morning light forgives endlessly because it understands. Every sunrise says, begin again. The self never grows tired of revealing itself. When death finally comes, it will not be a stranger, it will be another dawn. You will awaken again, beyond form, beyond fear, into the eternal light you have been rehearsing each morning. The peace you cultivated in life will be the same peace that welcomes you home. And perhaps in some distant realm of the collective unconscious, another empath will rise at dawn and feel faintly the warmth of your light, not knowing why, only sensing that somewhere someone remembered peace. The world awakens, so do you. The two are not separate. You are the morning light.